Hello everybody and welcome. Thank you for joining us today. My name's Harriet Ruby. I'm going to be your host for today and I am the head of marketing at Think. So a little housekeeping before we get going. So all attendees are muted, so we don't hear any of your children, dogs, background calls, things like that. You can ask us questions at any point if you use the panel at the side of your screen. And if you're having a technical issue, just click the raise your hand icon and we have technical help ready and available to support you today. And of course, a copy of today's recording will be sent to you as attendees and anyone that registered. So today's session, we're here to discuss the practical strategies for breaking down data silos and foster a culture of collaboration across the globe, across organizations, and share data that's going to help you achieve greater sales, greater revenue success. But how can data silos within an organization hinder this process, leading you to inefficiencies, missed opportunities, interdepartmental conflicts? That's what we're going to focus on today's webinar. So who's joining us today to talk about this invaluable discussion? We have two industry experts, so I'm going to let them introduce themselves. We have Patricia Shea, SVP of Revenue at Knowland, and Chris Caesar, Director of Sales at Think. So Patricia, I'm going to go to you first to introduce yourself. And then Chris.
Thanks, Harriet. Thanks everybody for joining. I'm Patricia Shea, SVP Revenue at Knowland. I've been with Knowland for 8 years, and before that have background in sales both inside and outside the hospitality industry. So this is a topic that's near and dear to my heart. Knowland, if you're not familiar, is the leading provider of account-based sales data for the hotel industry. And we are celebrating our 20th anniversary this year. So we're very excited to continue to drive progress in the industry.
Fantastic. Welcome to the webinar, Patricia, and over to you, Chris.
Yeah, thanks. I'm Chris Caesar. I'm a Director of Sales here at Think. I joined Think about a year ago to help bring this modern solution from Europe to the Americas. Interestingly enough, I actually started my hospitality tech career at Knowland and spent 5 years there helping support hospitality sales teams drive revenue and exceed sales goals with Knowland's data. A little bit about Think. So founded in 2019, it's an end-to-end all-in-one sales core platform. It supports property, multi-property, and GSO workflows. It sits on top and unlocks data from the PMS to support processes and actionable insights. After starting sales about 3 years ago, we've partnered with nearly a property a day on this modern solution. And all of our customers share a similar vision. One is data is part of their asset. A solution is needed to empower their own innovation. Speed and adaptability is key to being future-proof. And personalization and flexible use of space is key to driving maximum revenues.
Brilliant. Thank you both. So what are we going to be covering today? So we've got a set of topics that we'll be chatting through across through Patricia and Chris, and then we'll be finishing with a Q&A. We also have some polls so we can get your feedback and insights into some of the topics we're going to be talking about, so keep an eye out for those. So what's the agenda? We're going to start with talking about strategies for reducing those data silos, actionable methods, how to kind of like break down the barriers to data access, and then sharing it within your organization. Then we're going to talk about some frameworks for those proactive sales plans, you know, leveraging that collaborative data, identifying those opportunities, anticipating needs, and then tailoring those needs to your offerings to especially an evolving market. And then finally, we're going to delve into some trends and talking about the tools and techniques for using collaborative data, and talking about those shifts in the market and where it's all going to be going towards, and how you can actually stay competitive. And so with that, we're actually going to start with our first poll. So we're going to be asking, to what degree does your organization operate in data silos? There'll be 4 options. Not often, our teams are totally connected. Sometimes we have trouble engaging some departments. Frequently, most departments operate independently, and 100% of the time, we are not motivated to share data. So I am launching the poll now. And so I will give you 30 seconds to complete the poll, unless we all vote ahead of time. So you should all be able to see and vote on the poll now. Brilliant. I can see lots of changing activity. We're currently sometimes we have trouble engaging is our top performer currently, but it is actively shifting a lot. I'm going to give you about 10 more seconds. And 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Right, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to share those results, and we'll come to you, Patricia and Chris, to kind of have a talk through what we feel these results are saying, and then we'll go straight into our first topic. So, well, sometimes we have trouble engaging some departments is a clear winner, followed not far behind with 33% of frequently most departments operate independently. So I think we can see here that the topic what we're talking about today in data collaboration is a much needed discussion that we're having today. So with that, let's hide that poll away and jump straight into our first topic, excuse me, which is strategies for reducing silos. So, as mentioned, today's fast-paced environment, the ability to seamlessly integrate and analyze data across multiple departments is that key to unlocking those revenue streams. But as we've seen on the poll, organizations not structured to foster that sharing of data and not keeping that in mind. So starting with you, Patricia, how are organizations evolving operationally to enable that exchange of information and enable data enabling the data sharing strategies needed to see those kind of key revenue increases?
Yeah, sure. So I think one of the most encouraging differences that we've seen in the last few years is the continued implementation of the commercial strategy team, as opposed to separate sales, separate revenue, separate marketing. And I think that really shows through in the poll, where about half of the teams are saying, yeah, we're intending to collaborate with one another. And I think a lot of the lag is not because of a lack of desire so much as lack of time and lack of access to the resources to provide it. To provide structure consistently. But for our side, with a lot of our customers, where 5 years ago we primarily sat, really squarely within the sales team, we are more and more seeing revenue managers and revenue leaders reaching out to understand our data better so they can use their discipline to help drive the sales teams. I think that collaboration is one that sales and revenue leaders sort of instinctively knew all along, but now there's real focus on pulling them together. So we have one major management company we worked with that just started requiring all revenue managers to be certified in using Nolan data. And that really wasn't a priority 4 or 5 years ago. And then another organization we worked with just tried using 7-day data access, very similar to the relationship we just announced with Think. And when they did that, they put the revenue management team right on top of all of that same data that the sales team was gaining access to. Revenue managers pulled in what are our need periods, what are the needs of our specific hotels, and really fed some ideas to the sales team, which led to $500,000 of revenue opportunities across 3 hotels over 4 weeks of this trial. They did, a site visit for a law firm that had recurring express business. Each individual piece of business might not have been extremely interesting to a sales manager, but when the revenue team saw that recurrence, really highlighted it. A short-term booking from a law firm for over $300,000 of MRR, and a scientific association meeting for 2026 that fell into a need period time. So it was really about putting a different set of eyes on the same set of data and pushing that through to the sales team to help them, drive success in the ways that they can do, oftentimes with their eyes closed.
Fantastic. And Chris, straight to you. What challenges have your clients kind of commonly faced when it comes to integrating data across departments, and how have they kind of started to address this?
Yeah, no, siloed solutions and not having a single source of truth, right? We see sales, ops, rev, marketing, all working in different solutions that don't necessarily talk to each other. And then the other departments or parts of the org may not have access, right? It becomes especially problematic, right, with a multi-property environment. To Patricia's point, sales, ops, rev, marketing, they need to be lockstep. So first step to address this issue would be to have clean data, right? Modern core technology like Think understands data as part of the property's asset, management company's asset, and brand's asset. So we provide all this real-time analytics to be able to support, all the org's needs and even support conversations with owners.
Right, instant, actionable insights. So
Exactly.
yeah, brilliant. Well, I think this is the perfect time to go straight back to you, our audience, with our next poll. So I'll quickly just talk you through it. We're going to ask you, what is your biggest challenge when it comes to data sharing and collaboration across departments? Is it a lack of clear guidelines or protocols for data access, departmental resistance to sharing data, difficulty integrating data from different systems, just too many data sources, or all of the above? So that is now with you. And again, I'll give you a good minute to give us your answer. I think that's definitely one of the key parts of this discussion. Too many data sources. That's part of the collaboration piece as well. It's not just necessarily departments. It's all those different action items you're being given at one time. About 20 more seconds. At the moment, the resounding winner is all of the above, everything. And what I have to say is like the results of these two polls at the moment are really showing that this is a really needed conversation right now. So I'm going to close down the vote. I'll share the answers, which, as you can see, is very much all of the above, followed very closely behind difficulty integrating between the two, between multiple systems or too many data sources, we just said. So let's hide that. So as we've just heard from between Tricia, Chris, and then the polls as well, we need to lean into that commercial strategy and build connections between sales, revenue, and marketing, giving the above property leaders access to the same data as the property, so they can really see the trends, understand the strategy, and make those kind of actionable decisions. So one of the key tips here is don't leave management companies out of the data loop. They're an advocate. They can help make informed decision making and really can help drive actionable insights there as well. And that really leads us really nicely into our next topic, which is establishing that framework for proactive sales. So as we've said, unified data can absolutely empower your teams to create those proactive sales plans, monitor market trends, adapt your strategies in real time. I think that's the key points here, real-time data. But as we know, in today's RFP-driven kind of day-to-day, it's hard to find that time, nurture the account, find the relationships, build the repeat business. How can you modify those sales approaches? So Chris, we'll go straight to you. So when it comes to the sales approach and leveraging organizational how do you modify that approach to find new sources of revenue from current and new accounts?
Yeah, so I mean, first of all, it's really important to empower the sales team that's interacting with these accounts, right? First, being able to have this clean data, things like historical account production, rooms only versus group versus corporate, individual, etc. ADR by day of the week, down to like even a granular level of these accounts by pet fees and hotel fees. This kind of data, right, can help prioritize, the accounts to know who may need special attention, and then develop, strategies around these, for the nurture piece of the business. But yeah, in addition, at a corporate level, being able to see these data points rolled up, in totals across portfolios by region, shared team is, a must in today's competitive landscape. So being able to give all the departments the access to that actionable data, which will benefit the relationship and then also the revenue within these accounts, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we see that quite a lot of the time. So Patricia, same question, back to you.
Yeah, no question. I think one of the things, Chris keeps describing is layering the information of the data so that management companies, so that asset managers have access to the same data on property. It's one of the most frequent requests we get when we work with owners, asset managers, and management companies, where teams are saying, we know that we're giving our hotel teams really big goals, and we're committed to making sure they have the resources to make those goals happen. But, what are some key insights we can pull out to help them in the right direction? And so what we see work really well is when sales teams and their above property leadership can talk at an account level that's not all the way down to individual bookings, but really looking at, as Chris described, which accounts are your maintain accounts, which accounts are your growth accounts, and which accounts are, having a lot more activity in the market, but that's not visible at the individual property level. And so teams can spend so much time trying to organize their internal data that it's hard to then remember to layer in that external data as well. So you're not just focusing on your strongest accounts, but you're really building up the growth accounts as well.
Brilliant. So know which inbound leads to spend your time on and understand that account booking history. See how you can penetrate existing accounts and maximize that total account revenue, including corporate, group, catering, meetings, etc. Look beyond internal data, as you've just said, and uncover accounts and markets with booking potential for your property, and then understanding that booking behavior and preferences to build account-based selling strategies, target the industry, competitive bookings, new business in your market. I think that some really fantastic key takeaways from that part of our discussion. And as is, I'm sure you're expecting, as we come to the end of one of our topics, it's time for another poll. So nice, simple one here. What department can benefit most from data collaboration of sales data? Is it sales, marketing, revenue, development, or all of the above? I know for me personally, as head of marketing in my role, I am a huge advocate for a very unified sales marketing and in our industry product way of working when it comes to data collaboration. So on a slightly obviously internal industry side of things, I'm a big advocate for as much data collaboration as possible, because at the end of the day, it helps me do my job so much better when it comes to actually marketing ourselves and our products. Fantastic. I'm going to close that there, as we've had quite a large percentage already vote. And I think we can see a resounding success here. All of it. Everyone needs data, and I think we can all agree with everything we've just said so far today, that absolutely this is data collaboration at its best. All departments seeing everything they need to make those actionable decisions. Right, let's hide that. and move on to our final topic, which is predicting these hospitality trends. Let's all get our crystal balls out and look to the future. So we talk about today's ever evolving, constantly changing hospitality landscape, and being adaptable is absolutely the key to staying ahead of that curve. Anticipating market trends using data-driven tools, as everything we're talking about today. Using those techniques to drive adjustments, new strategies, and ensure your sales and revenue plans remain as effective and, most importantly, competitive. So I think we'll start straight with you, Patricia, and talk to us about the proliferation of tools out there and the direction the industry is going.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much of a crystal ball it is to say, AI-based solutions are coming on fast and sales teams are really coming up with creative ways to make the most of it. We know that when teams combine all of the data that they have available to them with really modern enablement tools, that's where the magic happens, where you're not just seeing the trends, but actually driving them into actionable results. We hear just so many different ways that teams are using the new tools creatively. Organization we work with has been using AI to research their top prospects. And so they understand the profile of either a decision maker or sort of the company personality, using AI to get a read of how does that company sort of behave in social media, and then use that to personalize their RFP responses, to personalize their site visits, to really bring an approach that speaks to the way that the company presents itself in public. And I just thought, wow, that is not the way I primarily think of people using AI, but a really creative way to get some of the fun of selling in the hospitality industry, back in together with all of the data. I think it's really just going to be about prioritization of if your team has a very clear view of what the strategy is for your organization or for your individual hotel, then knowing exactly how all the fun new tools can help you achieve that strategy in a quicker and more efficient way. So we're really excited to see. It sort of feels like in the last year or so, teams have gotten back to the fun of selling and out of some of the dirge of the last few years. So we're excited to see what comes.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. We kind of see it every day. There's a nice new shiny AI tool, but you've really got to put the kind of proof in the pudding, as it were, using data, and it sounds like, especially with that great example there, putting the fun back in selling, using all these wonderful new tools that are out there. So Chris, what's your take on some of the best tools out there for proactive sales?
Yeah, for proactive sales, right, when it comes to boosting proactive sales, it's important that the right tech stack's in play, and importantly, processes are built around them. And you need to be thinking about sales today, but also where your company's going, right? The roadmap, long-term roadmap, and hopefully that tech stack aligns. But like leveraging internal data sources such as like account production from a company like Think, and then external data source like a Noland, being able to leverage those kind of solutions in a collaborative way is really the key to success, whether it's Noland or Think. This insight can help set strategies right in the scenario where it's Think, Noland of, which accounts do we need to build upon or acquire, and most importantly, like which ones are they from maybe our house accounts. But once again, it all comes down to the data, and it has to be real time, has to be easily accessible, shared across the different departments that we've mentioned, and clear strategies set in place to leverage all these tools.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think to summarize what you've both said, AI, it's always worth looking at and testing to make sure they've got longevity. Market trends, account-based data insights, they are the meat and potatoes, as it were, for that proactive sales strategy. And database decision making, it's boosting win rates in what is only an RFP lottery game, as it were. We've covered a ton of ground and we've got some questions coming in. So before we hit our final poll and say our final comments, I'm just going to put a couple of questions to you, Patricia and Chris. So first one, I understand the data collaboration, but what are we getting, kind of what are we getting at here? Is it coming? I'm not sure how we can join our data and what this conversation is all about. So I think it's kind of, I'll go to you first, Patricia, here, and in terms of like, are we getting there? Is this starting to happen? Are we seeing that when it comes to data collaboration?
I mean, I think yes, and it really depends on the organization and how manual a process that is versus whether there are systems set up to do it in a more automated way. From Nolan perspective, our CEO comes from the brand background, where a big part of his focus is really on engaging the rest of the vendor community to understand how we can combine together and work together to make it easier for hotels. And that's what Nolan and Think in our partnership, as well as others that both of our organizations are trying to do, right? Bring all the different pieces together and provide them in one way. Today I see it candidly also in sometimes manual ways, right? We're still working in Excel sometimes, but I think the momentum is there in the industry and the solutions will continue to come.
Fantastic. Chris, I'm going to ask you a different question. How should hospitality organizations decide which technologies, platforms, tools to implement for market trend monitoring and data collaboration?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I mean, it's going to come down to the brands or management companies' specific needs, but it's really important to think about where they're going as an organization. Not only to put like a Band-Aid over, maybe a pain point here in the now, but to think long-term and do these solutions line up and give you the flexibility of, long-term growth and innovation. Right, I think is the really important part and question to be asking.
Great. We've got one last question, unless somebody else asks one while we're doing this one. I'm going to hand over this one to both of you because it's a really nice question. What best practices do you advise organizations to streamline that decision-making process and help us be more efficient? So if I kind of go to you first, Patricia.
Sure. So best practice is to collaborate on data and become more efficient in doing so.
Yeah, like it's kind of the whole process. I know we talked about it a lot already today, but if there's any kind of like one singular best practice from yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really cross-departmental communication is the most important one. Bringing back the use or the value of best practices in stand-ups, in internal sessions, for larger groups and management companies, this type of webinar of wins and best practices from having used their tools to the best ability has been, I think, really impactful for some of the teams that we work with.
Same question for you, Chris. Have you got a kind of a best practice that you would advise?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it starts with having the conversation, right? Whether it's at the property management company or brand. Starts with the conversation, and then asking, are our processes streamlined today? Could they be better? And are we leveraging all this modern technology that's out here to the best of our abilities, or have we not even started that in our roadmap yet? And is it time? We found that for many it is. So that's where I would start with the conversation.
We've had one last question in, and it's actually specifically about the relationship between Think and Nolan, and how Think is using the fantastic data that Noland provides. So Chris probably is the best place to answer that one from the Think perspective.
Sorry, can you just one more time the question?
How is Think using the Noland data?
Yes, so it's a data share situation so that the properties can easily leverage the 7-day read from a Noland, for example, similar to other partnerships out in the market. But more to come in future collaborations for sure. Patricia, I don't know if there's something that you would like to add there.
I mean, I think as I said, we're really committed throughout the industry to make our data more easily available and easier for teams to work with. So we're excited about our growing relationship with Think, and definitely more to come.
Excellent. I'm just going to give the questions one quick review. No, that was the last one. Fantastic. And we can't finish this webinar without one more poll. So our final one will be asking you to bring out your crystal balls based on everything we've talked about today. How much increased efficiency do you think there would be achieved in your organizations by reducing the data silos at your organizations, as we heard in the top poll of the day? It's quite prevalent amongst our attendees today. So would it be up to 20% increased efficiency, 20 to 40, 40 to 60, more than 60, or we're quite happy to accept, I don't know. But we'll finish off the day with a future thinking poll and where you feel that your increased efficiencies would be if we reduce those data silos. And I think my key takeaway today is that communication is king to achieve everything we've set out to achieve today, talking about reducing those silos, bringing in that collaborative data. It's all about communication. I'll give you a few more seconds. While we finish the poll, I'll take this opportunity to thank everyone for attending our webinar today. Thank you to Patricia, thank you to Chris, thank you to the team at Think and Noland for bringing this conversation to you all today. Everyone that is both registered and attending will receive a recording of today's session, and we will finish by closing the vote. Oh, last second, and here are the results. I think it's fair for the folks saying I don't know. It's quite a difficult question to think about, but for those saying you'll see a 20 to 40% increase in your efficiency, wow. Hopefully the best practices, the topics, the tools we talked about today can help you start those conversations to moving towards a collaborative data sharing world. And with that, thank you very much from myself, Patricia and Chris.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.